right. I think we are live. Hey, Jake, can you hear me, brother? Give me a thumbs up if you hear me. Keep in mind, I've never done this before. All right. Right on. Right on, everybody. Thanks for jumping on. Dunnigan, I love you, man. Thank you for the introduction on our podcast we were just on and sending everybody over. I appreciate it. I've thought about this for a very long time. I've thought about doing my own podcast, and for whatever reason, I never did. But I guess this will be our maiden voyage. I plan on bringing lots of guests on board, not just my little friend over here, Kevin, who is going to help with questions tonight, but I think we'll bring some good guests on from time to time that will make coming on this podcast even more interesting than I hope it to be. I plan on going on week to week and talking about things that are important to me, but I figured I'd start it off tonight, since this is the first time I've done this, with answering questions. And for those of you that watch me on Mark Z, this is the infamous Kevin that I seem to always blame for all of my misgivings. It's always Kevin's fault. Every one of them. So in any ways, I just want to thank everyone for being here. I do appreciate it. Now, Kevin is not my twin brother, but although we look kind of like it tonight,
well, now I look about half of the size.
he's sitting on a
sitting in a little kitty
he's
chair.
sitting in a kitty chair.
Yeah.
But anyways, I appreciate you all for being here, and I'm gonna go through all of these questions that I have. I guess that's a good way to do it. Did we buy our glasses from the same shop? I think we did. We actually bought them in London. We were together in London, and we bought them, and I bought like 30 pairs of them, and I don't know where most of them are, shockingly enough.
They fell off the golf cart.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I've lost them.
Before you get into the questions, I think we got a lot today. A lot of people wanted to know what your thoughts were about your take on the election and what potentially that would do, in your opinion, to the price of metals. So why don't you start there and give everyone a little insight?
Well, the question that he's asking me is what do I think will happen with the election? And what will happen to the metals? Look, if last night was any indication of it, I'm not confident that Trump is going to win this election. I wish I were. But even if he did, I don't think it would change much in terms of economics. You have Trump talking about a weak dollar. You have Trump talking about low interest rates. You have Trump talking about sanctioning countries that decide to move away from the U.S. dollar. That's the same playbook. It doesn't work. The reason I want Trump to win is I'm sick and tired of the lawlessness in this country. I'm sick and tired of the wokeness in this country. I moved from Minnesota 3.5 years ago because of the knucklehead that is Governor Walz. He let our city burn down. I watched it happen for 3 straight days before he brought in the National Guard. I've watched him, through mismanagement, literally destroy an $18 billion surplus in the state and bankrupt the state with stupid decisions, like putting mandatory tampon dispensers in every high school, K through 12 in the state, just in case there are some young ladies who identify as a boy who have their period inside of a boy's bathroom. Look, I am someone who is my parents were hippies. I'm very tolerant to lifestyle, but how disrespectful is that to the taxpayer? That's exactly the kind of nonsense that we're continuing to see in this country, where $100,000 of debt is being created every second, 24/7, $1 trillion every 100 days. It took 200 years to do it the first time. And it's more of the same. So from a standpoint of who do I want to win and what will happen, whoever wins, the price of gold ought to do very well. And part of me feels like Trump understands the significance of resetting the system. In essence, a bankruptcy and starting over. He understands that. I do believe even his VP candidate Vance came out and said, hey, maybe having a world reserve currency isn't such a good idea. Well, that's the same nonsense that the knucklehead Jared Bernstein said when he advocated for the loss of the reserve standard. And all of the things I've talked about over the last few years, saying it's too stupid to be stupid, you can't make this stuff up. it's almost as if that's the pattern or the pathway that we are on, of losing the reserve status, of resetting a system that is immeasurably indebted, a system that is in debt to the tune of what? 35 trillion on balance sheet, 200 trillion off balance sheet. The US government's balance sheet shows asset base of just over $5 trillion, with nearly 200 plus trillion in funded and unfunded liabilities. The game is over. So how do you end the game? Well, you can end the game one of four ways. You can end the game through inflation. You can end the game through default. You can end the game through finding a villain. Those sons of bitches did it to us. They dumped the dollar, no longer the reserve currency. Putin and Xi Jinping and OPEC. And the fourth option is an interesting one that we've been talking more and more and more about, and that is revaluing the price of gold. And I think that is something that is very intriguing. Even Cynthia Loomis, the senator from Wyoming, is talking about revaluing the gold that the United States supposedly owns. It hasn't been audited since 1953, to partially fund the Bitcoin strategic account that President Trump was talking about implementing should he win. Guess what I'm simply trying to say is that this current administration has done more to damage this country than anything or any external foe could have ever have done. And God help us all if it transitions to Kamala Harris. What I wish for with Trump is not to fix the ills of economics. I don't think he'll do any better. He added $7 or $8 trillion in debt during his administration. But what he will do, God willing, is get this country back on its footing again, where you respect authority, where you are defined by your merit, not by your lifestyle. Lord knows if I were defined by my lifestyle, I'd be in big trouble. And when we talk about merit, it's about how hard do you work? What are your qualities? Do you get along with people? Are you on time? None of that stuff seems to matter anymore. The election, whether he said it well last night, whether or not you believe the election is fair or not, half the world thinks it isn't and that it wasn't. And whether or not you believe that there's a two-tier justice system, half of the world believes it's not. But most of the world, those kids that wanted to wear Levi's jeans and listen to rock and roll music and come to the United States, many of them are saying, what the hell's happened to this beautiful country? With the lawlessness in the cities and the massive immigration and just the chaos that we see. So I hope personally that President Trump wins so that we can go back to what America stood for. And even something as simple as the nuclear family, which has been obliterated. My buddy David, my attorney and dear friend from Minnesota, told me he was looking at the bar exam for one of his associates, a young gentleman who was working for him. And he said, Andy, there was one page this long with how you describe who you are. Are you a boy or a girl? That's all it should be to me. But evidently, there's about 900 other descriptions that you can choose. This is the kind of stuff that I think is destroying this country. And I am a very liberal, socially minded person, socially liberal. Fiscally conservative, but those things don't bother me on a level, but they bother me on what it's doing to this country, and it's eroding the principles of this country, starting with the nuclear family, mom and dad, right, boy and girl, and then all of the things that we are doing on top of that, to me, are eviscerating the ideals and whitewashing the culture of this country. That's why I want President Trump to win, and God help us all if he doesn't, as far as I'm concerned. And I've talked a lot about the Cloward-Piven theory, and this is happening not just in the United States, it's happening in the UK, it's happening in Paris. I don't think whoever wins, it's going to matter. And gold and silver, to me, it is being proven by the actions of the biggest money in the world. There is a plan in store for those who hold commodities. Zoltan Pozsar says, Bretton Woods 3, that's where we are now. He or she who has the commodities makes the rules. So that's my feeling on that. I will be horrified if my children have to go out into a world where we have 4 more years of this stuff. So let's hope not. So I will.
We got say hello to Mark. Mark's on.
Mark Z.
Lurking around.
Mark Z, are you here?
He is here.
Mark Z, I love you, brother. You know that.
You definitely have people that listen to you, because Miggy just wrote.
Dunnigan is here, and Dunnigan and Mark Z are two of my favorite people on this planet, and can't thank them enough for their friendship, for our business relationship. Two of the most real people I know, and I love both of them dearly. So thank you, along with Jake's Custom Part. one of the greatest guys I've ever met in business, and had the good fortune of having dinner with he and his wife. And it's neat when you get to meet people along the way. And you know, that's something I want to just touch on for a moment, because this is my first podcast. I don't need to be all about business. I will, but I want you to know that to me, what's made Miles Franklin, what's made me who I am, is embracing relationships. And all of the people who work with me or for me are friends that I go back to childhood with, or friends that I've made later in life that have been my friends long before they ever had any aspirations of working for me. Relationships mean the world to me, and where we are going, relationships ought to mean something to you all. You never understand how important a relationship is until there's a problem. You know, it's, you don't know what you've got till it's gone type of deal. And I could increase the EBITDA of my business by being just like all the other online companies, and not have people that care and represent my company the way they would if it were their own. In many cases, they feel like it's their own because they're my dearest, oldest friends, going back to childhood. But there's something to be said for relationship, for knowing that there's someone out there that will care about the way that they handle their affairs, to make sure that everything is done the right way. And I'm damn proud of the fact that in 34 years and over 10 billion in sales, we've never had a customer complaint. And it's because of our business model. It's because that, you know, there are people here who care and will do what they're supposed to do. And no one works for me, nobody, other than one or two people in my admin who weren't friends of mine long before they worked at Miles Franklin. And all of these people, including Kevin sitting next to me, have distinguished careers long before they came to work here. Kevin worked on Wall Street. John over here worked on Wall Street. I have, you know, Duran with a master's degree from or business administration from Temple, and bought and sold his own business, and one from Wharton School of Business, and on and on and on. The point of it is, they're my friends, and they're my friends before they are my partners in this business. So relationships are important, and that's why I have the model that I do. And I think we're heading into a period of time where relationships will have far greater significance than people put a price tag on. And it's the same kind of nonsense watching young kids grow up without talking, simply by texting or snapping or whatever they do these days. So yeah, you know, I don't shut up, as you can all see. And I think there's a lot to be said for talking and having a relationship. And that turns into something a lot deeper. A lot of the people who I do business with are my friends, and Dunnigan and Mark Z, I consider to be dear friends, and very thankful that not only are they here tonight, but that they're in my life. So I love you guys.
Well, you have people that do listen to you, because Miggy just wrote a trillion seconds equals 31,688 years. So clearly your point is—
So Miggy, I appreciate that, man, because those are the little things that I think when you talk about education, when you talk about teaching or learning. Someone once said to me that, you know, people have a hard time remembering facts and figures, but you put it in the form of a story or something that they can remember. Now, that is a fact and it is a figure, but it's something that ought to have a massive impression upon you, because, you know, the average house these days is $400,000, $500,000. So a lot of people live in $1 million homes, or will make $1 million throughout their career. They may not save it, but they'll make it. Million is not something that is beyond the reach of people if they work really hard. It used to be $1 million used to be a big deal, a big number. I remember I was a bag boy in 1984 in Minneapolis, and when a woman would come through with 2 grocery carts filled with food back to back, it was $150. Now that doesn't even buy you a couple of steaks and a box of strawberries. So the point of it is that, you know, a million doesn't sound like that much anymore, and there's several thousand billionaires, right? So a trillion can't be that much. When you realize we're creating $1 trillion of debt every 100 days, it's 31,688 years ago is 1 trillion seconds. And it's probably it's probably the one fact that I've said more than any other in years, because it's something people should understand. These numbers are very significant, and in many cases will never be paid back. And when you talk about unfunded liabilities exceeding $200 trillion now. That's a number that we will never come back from. Everyone focuses on $35 trillion debt. And that's why I say, is it too stupid to be stupid? Because the numbers are so big, you can't come back. My mentor, Richard Russell, said, you can inflate, you can default. What about find a villain? That's what I've talked about for the last several years, Xi Jinping and Putin and OPEC. But how about revalue the price of gold? And that's something that I think could very well happen. And in the podcast I was just on with Dunnigan, I read something from a 1974 staff meeting between Henry Kissinger and Thomas Enders, where they basically said that we're trying to strip gold out of the system because he who has the gold more or less makes the rules, and they can be revalued from time to time. And they keep talking about gold being revalued. Gold is held in central bank balance sheets in an account called the gold revaluation account. And when you see all of these central banks buying it at a level that the world has never seen, the only other tier one reserve asset which can be revalued, it should tell you the price is what someone will pay for it. China's been pricing silver at $4 an ounce higher than the West for the last 6 months. That is the price. What if it was $40 an ounce higher? At $4 alone, if you get a trader from JP Morgan who can buy 50 million ounces of silver on COMEX and deliver it to London, that's $200 million profit. Let's do it. That's what they're going to say. They're not going to think of the long-term ramifications. That's arbitrage. What if they make it $40 higher or $100 higher? That is the price. So what if they revalue gold to $120,000 an ounce, making our balance sheet pristine, from putrid to pristine, just like that? What if they did that? Why can't we live in a world where everyone thinks Bitcoin should be 100,000, but gold shouldn't be? Why not? And at that level, not only is your balance sheet pristine, but now you peg it to a new system. And when you hear about gold being reclassified tier one and the central banks buying it and tied to a new settlement like the unit and all of these things, and the IMF saying any CBDC not pegged to something is fiat, and the BIS saying it's the only other tier one asset. These are the crumbs that you should follow. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that something is in store for us with gold and with silver. And he or she who has the commodities makes the rules. That is where we are going.
Well, I think that being said, what we talked about earlier with when you said statistically, when homes were gauged by the amount of gold, I think that's a pretty important thing to talk about.
Yeah, that is a good thing to talk about. He's putting me on the spot here. In 1960, the average price of a home, according to the Census Bureau, to my recollection, was $17,000, and the average price of gold was $39. So you divide that into the price of a home, you get 435 ounces. So grandma and grandpa are sitting around the bedroom one day, and they say, we've got 435 ounces of gold, even though it's illegal to own it right now in 1960. Don't tell anyone. Do we keep this gold and stick it under the mattress for Junior someday, or do we sell it to buy our house for cash for $17,000, right? And let's just say they decided to stick it under the mattress, to not sell it and to take out a mortgage. And $17,000 back then was a lot of money, right? Well, here we are and in fact, I think I don't know if I actually have the average price of the house right now. I think an average price of a house right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000. So when you talk about $400,000 right now, and you take gold at 2,500 right now, you can buy a house with that same gold that's been sitting underneath the mattress for the better part of 65 years, earning nothing but dust, no interest. That's always the pushback. Gold doesn't pay a coupon. Gold doesn't pay a yield. Yeah, my ass. I mean, it doesn't matter. Gold has outpaced all of the traditional assets for the past 25 years, not earning any interest. It's doubled the 10-year treasury. It's outpaced the S&P 500 with dividends reinvested by a little bit, 9.9% for gold, 9.6% for the S&P. But $400,000 divided by 2,500 is 160 ounces of gold. You had 435. You can buy 3 houses now for the same for that same stack of gold, the $17,000 that first house went for, well, that wouldn't even buy you a couch and a TV these days. So my point is that gold has a way of keeping pace, even though it doesn't pay a coupon. Go back any amount of time that you want. And one of the things that I talked about recently with that, I think I still have this chart. Let me see if I do. If I don't, we'll move on. But here it is. Yeah. So 1971, the cost of a 400-ounce bar was $14,000. In 2000, it was $115,000. And in 2024, it's $1 million. An easier way of saying that is that in 1971, $14,000 was 400 ounces. In 2000, $14,000 was 49 ounces. And today it's 6 ounces. So when you talk about, is it gold going higher or is the dollar getting its ass kicked? When you look at the Japanese yen, in Japan 10 years ago, an ounce of gold was 140 or 50,000 yen. Today it's 360 or 70. Did the price of gold triple in yen, or did the yen get its ass kicked? That's where we are heading. That's why it's so important to understand that the big money doesn't care about any of this stuff. Positive real return on the 10-year treasury minus inflation. They don't care about a strong dollar. They just want the gold because they understand what it represents. And it represents wealth and a system that is transitioning back to using something like gold as the standard, as the barometer by which we gauge the health of a currency and of a system. So let's see. One of the questions that I have here is, would it be wise to sell gold for silver? I don't know. I think that Bix Weir would tell you it's wise to sell gold for silver. If I had one trade and one trade only, a genie comes out of a bottle, I'm buying gold. Why? It's the only other tier 1 reserve asset in the world, period. However, with that being said, silver is the most undervalued asset in the world, and that gold to silver trade, silver to gold trade, gold to silver trade rather, is probably the trade of a generation. And I don't say that lightly. I truly mean that. It is the trade of a generation. And there are very few things that I've ever seen that exhibit the asymmetrical risk reward of silver, meaning what has the lowest downside and the best upside? Undoubtedly, it is silver. And even though gold is that tier 1 asset, silver is being wickedly and massively accumulated by countries like India and China. If you've watched any of my last few shows, you know I did an interview with Sean Kun from Dolly Varden Silver, who confirmed exactly what I've been saying, that indeed China is flying all around the world as the second largest producer of silver in the world. Now, everyone knows they're big into gold. They're number 2 in production of silver, and maybe even number 1, just because they don't tell us how much they produce. But they're flying all around the world and buying unrefined silver in the form of doré bar, in the form of concentrate, and they are buying it directly from the miners, paying close to double what the West will pay, shipping it home and refining it there, because they've already done all they can to drain the COMEX and to drain the LBMA. Even they're continuing to slowly do that. They're getting to the point where, the cupboards are becoming bare, and it will cause too much attention. So what do? You go directly to the refiners in Latin America. You say, don't go to the commercial banks and fund your operations. I'll buy it from you right now in doré bar and concentrate. For those of you who don't know what a doré bar is, it's a bar that is refined by the miner to maybe 40 or 50 or 60%. It's an ugly, ugly bar, but it's a way to send it to the refiner to have it refined into 3.9 or 4.9 silver. And so it's a bar before it becomes a bar. Well, the same thing is true with the concentrate. It's kind of like sludge. And they will bring it home and refine it. And when you talk about the refining capabilities of the Chinese, not only is almost 100% of the rare earth metals refined mined in the Eurasian continent, 100% of all the rare earths were refined in China last year. So they're buying it from the miners. They're buying it in a way the metal does not come off the exchange, and they are refining it in China. So let's get back to the question. Should I trade gold for silver? Where we are right now at 20, let's call it 2520 divided by 2885. So what do we get there? 2520 divided by, let's just call it 29. You're at about 87 to 1. That's happened less than 0.5% of the time in human history. It hasn't hardly happened at all. And so it's an anomaly. It's coming out of the ground right now at 7-1, according to all the mining execs I talked to. And you got people like Keith Neumeyer, who was saying it publicly, coming out and saying it's coming out of the ground at 7-1 ratio, 7 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold, yet it's priced at 87-1. You could argue it's 11 times undervalued or 12 times undervalued. And from a standpoint of a once in a generation trade, yes, it is probably the right thing to do. If the genie said you have 2 trades, the genie said 2 trades. Well, I'm buying silver right now, and I then switch it to gold when the ratio corrects. If it's coming out of the ground at 7-1, but came out of the ground at 16-1 for 5,000 years, that means that the in-ground ratio is disappearing. And as I've said a million times, silver is found in nature in a form called epithermal, like your skin is epidermis. Epithermal means right at the surface. Of all of the silver that was mined last year, roughly only 25% of it came from companies that actually mine it. The majority of all the silver that comes to market is a byproduct of mining all sorts of other elements like gold or copper, or zinc or lead. And hey, we found some silver and we send it to the marketplace. So it's disappearing. It's disappearing in nature, but it is increasing in its demand uses in green, in digital, in industrial applications. And of course, as I've talked about ad nauseum, and I will give credit to John Little of the Pickaxe for his amazing investigative work in showing how silver used to be calculated in the supply-demand figures for military applications and the massive amount of silver that is needed in the high-tech weaponry field, whereby there's 500 ounces in the tip of a Tomahawk cruise missile, where in 1942, according to Senate Subcommittee hearing S.2768, they talk about 200 million ounces of silver being used for military in 1942. Well, where are we right now, where the level of sophistication of this military weaponry is so much higher that the need for silver is off the charts? Is this why 8 commercial banks are stepping on the price of silver? Unlike any commodity they have ever done, it has the largest concentrated short position in the history of any commodity ever traded on COMEX. Is this why silver is distorted? Why the hell would 7 Western banks be stepping on silver the way that they are if it weren't really important? If it weren't maybe more important than we're led on to believe, because it is needed in the military industrial complex. But what is happening as we look at the draining of the supply on the LBMA, where we've seen massive amounts of silver drained off of the LBMA in a very short period of time, where, let me see if I can give you the actual numbers here. Just in the month of August, we saw 27 million ounces, or 8.1% of the total London float of the 300 million ounces that are available. 27 million ounces in 1 month were delivered. Does that sound like normal to you all? You see, all of these countries, none of them were ever sophisticated, coordinated, or motivated or wealthy enough to drain the exchanges. No one ever stood for delivery. But when you see the amount of gold and silver that is being drained off of the exchanges, just off of COMEX in the last, let me see the numbers here. Where did I put that? Since 2020, the amount of metal that has come off of COMEX, 24,072 tons have come off of COMEX. That's about 80 million ounces, or excuse me, 800 million ounces. That's almost exactly the amount of silver that India has imported since 2020, about 800 million ounces. That's 2.5 times what the LBMA has available to be delivered. And the LBMA admits basically to trading 2.9 billion ounces of silver per day. That's 3.5 times global mine supply annually. It's 90+% paper, and it's all a bunch of nonsense.
But here's the question. David asked the question. He said, I know you're a bigger proponent for gold. I know what you've said about silver, but what's the likelihood of silver ever realizing its true value?
It will. And this is why, because now the exchanges are being bled dry by the countries that are motivated, sophisticated, coordinated, and wealthy, and they are standing for delivery. So they drain the COMEX, they drain the LBMA, and then they're like, well, we better back off a little bit. So let's go directly to the miners in Latin America and buy the sludge and the doré and bring it home and refine it. They're playing the long game. Just the same way that India has imported 700-800 million ounces in the last 3 years. The only way you can successfully manipulate a market over a period of time is to push it in the direction that it is going. So to answer his question, yes, the right answer would be if you have the inclination to take advantage of what I consider to be the finest speculation I've ever seen in my career, and a coordinated, calculated one that has the lowest downside and the highest upside. That's called asymmetrical risk reward. Yeah, you buy silver now and you switch it to gold. If it just gets to its 150-year average, price average, not God's average, which is the mining ratio, but man's average, the stupid price that was set because of gold's role as money and silver's role as an industrial, that's a double. And if it gets anywhere near what it's coming out of the ground at, that's 10, 11 fold. Could that happen? Yeah, why not? At some point, that has to sync up.
Well, Rude Awakening is asking, can the arbitrage on the Shanghai exchange do anything like allow physical silver to hit triple digits as it should be?
Yeah, I think it does at some point. I mean, and if you were to take right now the price of gold at 25.15 and divide it just by 42, which is the average price of the past 150 years, that's 60 to 1. And, you know, so could it hit triple digit? Absolutely, it could, because really none of us know what the real price of silver is. If you have 8 commercial banks suppressing the price, and they're all Western banks, these are all the Western countries who have massive military stockpiles. Military industrial complex needs silver to make that high-tech weaponry. Well, if China and India and the rest of the BRICS countries are wise to this game, absolutely you will see silver higher than anyone thinks possible. That I do believe. Is it triple digit? Who knows? It should probably be triple digit right now, just based upon the suppression on COMEX, which is very, very much messing with Mother Nature. And you have a whole half of the world who is wise to it. You know, when the BRICS Grain Exchange was recently founded, the head of the BRICS Grain Exchange says, you know, we produce and consume more of the wheat here in this part of the world than the West does, yet we have no ability to control the price. It's controlled on COMEX. This will change that. When the head of the Shanghai Metals Exchange in 2015 said, when we're allowed, the Chinese are allowed to speak at the gold table, the real price of gold will be observed. The point of it is that no one knows what these prices should really be. But when you see Russia come out and say, we're going to increase our gold purchases by 600% in the month of September and by $90 million or 36,000 ounces of gold per day, they're buying silver too. We will see both gold and silver go to levels that you can't imagine in the face of a dollar that is no longer demanded quite the way that it once was, and gold and silver become more of money that's probably worth a whole hell of a lot more than the currency that is used to buy it.
So one of the other things I wanted to bring up, because we have a bunch of questions to get to, but I know that a lot of our clients work with us in IRAs. And in the last couple of weeks, we've seen some shakeup in the IRA industry. A couple of the dubious players going out. You might want to talk to them about, what to watch out for, I think is an important thing for a lot of listeners to hear.
Yeah, this is one that I've tried to tread lightly on, but I've talked a lot about it. I believe in, it's one thing if I'm looking at you face to face, I'll tell you as it is. It's another thing when I'm sitting here talking to lots of people. I do a podcast with Robert Kiyosaki. It gets 1 million views. You can't say things that are inflammatory as badly as you want to. I'm not quite at that level yet where my first podcast is going to get 1 million views, but I have said a lot of this on Mark Z and on Liberty and Finance and other shows. This is a massive problem. I'm going to tell a little bit of a story first because it goes into this. And I play golf with a guy here, a sweetheart of a guy who used to work at Stratton Oakmont. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's Jordan Belfort's firm. That's Wolf of Wall Street. And one of he left. I said, did you get in trouble? He said, no, thankfully I left long before I realized what was going on. And I left. I didn't get in trouble. But he said what happened was a lot of the guys that worked there went out and formed other shops. And these shops did the exact same thing that he was doing. These boiler rooms that were, were doing things that were less than transparent and honest. Well, that's what I see happening in right now in the IRA space. And every one of these companies that are doing this, most of them have high paid, fancy public spokesmen. Most of them seem to be really with it, really wealthy, sophisticated companies that I'm not going to mention their names. I want to. I'll mention a name. And how about Oxford Gold? Oxford Gold is gone. For 3 years, Oxford Gold did not deliver their metal to clients' metals to the depositories. Oxford Gold was in Beverly Hills, and Oxford Gold was promoted by fancy spokespeople and promoted by IRA custodians. And Oxford Gold, ABC News said, is gone, and all of the money gone, and all of the gold gone, and they can't find it. There are companies like Oxford Gold out there, and they all seem to have the same model. That model is, number one, focus on IRAs, which is the most diabolical chicken shit way of doing things, period, because they're stealing from your parents and your grandparents. It's about as chicken shit as anything I've ever seen, if you want to know the truth, and as disgusting as anything I have ever seen. And a lot of them will harp on religion, and get people to the table because it's the God-fearing thing to do, making it even grosser. These people, when they meet their makers, I hope there's a special room for them to go to, because not only that, they all sell the same stuff, and they sell quarter-ounce gold coins, many of them from mints that I recognize, but in form that I've never heard of, some pronghorned owl or some weird thing that they get from one of these mints, like the Royal Canadian Mint or like the New Zealand Mint or the Guineas. These are coins that I've never seen before, right? So there are mints like the RCM, which is one of the most prestigious mints in the world. I got nothing but good things to say about them, but they will allow a company like mine to buy odd-sized coins and to pick an animal that is traditionally found in the Canadian wilderness that they don't already do. And I can, if I want to buy 1 million ounces, I can, and it'll be exclusive to me. So if I wanted to buy a 1 1/4 ounce silver giraffe or whatever, I don't think you're going to find those in Canada, but you get my point. I could do so, and I would be the only one who, and now they're exclusive, and there's a limited mintage, and they're worth a fortune. Well, we see this in quarter-ounce gold coins and 1 ounce silver coins, and every single one of these thieves are selling quarter-ounce coins between $800 and $1,200 an ounce. Every one of these thieves are selling silver coins between 60 and $100+ an ounce. They are screwing people to degrees you have never seen. And I so badly want to have a debate with their chicken shit CEOs or owners who would never have the nerve to come and defend themselves, because they know what they are doing. They are screwing people in a federally non-regulated industry.
You know what? It's funny because one of my clients called, I think it was today, and they actually said that they searched for Miles Franklin, and the first thing that came up was top IRA companies. And of course, it led them to what they thought was Miles Franklin, but it wasn't. It was a paid-for advertisement for the top 10 of the IRA dealers that we have nothing to do with. And it actually went so far as they thought they were calling Miles Franklin, but they weren't. It was calling one of these other firms that, by the ad, put Miles Franklin's name on it, and they think now they're getting in touch with Miles Franklin.
It's just very important that you understand that if you want to purchase a precious metals IRA, we will help you do it, and we will get you gold and silver bullion. We will get you coins that are high in metal content and are not esoteric and are not going to make you rich based upon their scarcity. And that's a bunch of crap.
Common coins.
Yeah.
They call what we're buying for clients common.
American Eagle, Canadian Maple Leaf, that's common coin. Right. You don't want it. Or some of them will say, oh, those are QSIP coins, and you don't want any QSIP coins. And that's just a bunch of crap. There is no such thing as QSIP coins for these. It's just a way that some of the custodians would be able to catalog whichever coins that they have in the IRA. The bottom line is simply this. If you've been affected by this, send us an email at info@milesfranklin and say, I think I may have been screwed by one of these unscrupulous companies, bought quarter-ounce gold coins at massive premiums between $800 and $1,200 an ounce. And keep in mind, at $2,500 an ounce, you shouldn't pay more than $650 for a quarter-ounce coin or somewhere in that neighborhood. I've never sold a quarter-ounce coin for $800, let alone $1,200, and we're at all-time highs in gold. So these companies are bad, bad, bad news. And they all have the similar pattern. Every one of them. There's about a dozen of them. And they all offer some of my friends, I'm not going to mention their names, massive $35,000, $40,000 a month promotional fees to promote them. I tell every one of them, you want to ruin your career, you should do it right away. They're the same ones that all sell the same product. Like they all came from the same class. They all sell quarter ounce gold. They all sell silver. If you dealt with it, go away from it.
They also deal a lot with the proof coins.
And proof.
Extremely, extremely expensive proof coins.
And what's the difference between a proof coin and a commercial strike coin? You can go to the usmint.gov and buy a proof coin right now. I have 3 kids. And since I can remember, I've bought 3 proof gold coins every year for my 3 kids. And the difference between a proof coin, which you can buy from the U.S. Mint, and a commercial strike coin, which you cannot buy from the U.S. Mint, you have to buy from a dealer like me, is that commercial strike coins, you take a blank disc, we call it a planchet, you stamp it, you put it in tubes of 20, boxes of 500, and off to the distributors it goes. A proof coin, they take that same planchet, they polish it under an industrial buffer till you can see a reflection in it, stamp it 4 times for greater definition, put it in a velvet box, and sell it for 2 or 3 times its value. Well, that's fine, but then you get these idiots that will try and sell you these coins and say they're so much better, or even lie to you and say you have to have them in your IRA, which is not true. In the IRA, you can have anything you want that's 999 fine silver or gold. Basically anything you want, that is, with the exception of the Krugerrand in modern mint, there's just about anything goes into your IRA. But they'll sell those coins at such high premiums that these people will never get their money back out of it ever again. These people should all be thrown in jail. So anyways, not to belabor the issue of taking too much time on IRAs, we'll keep on moving. What else we got?
All right, so number one, I would say that my most frequently asked question for me on any given day is if you are what you appear to be in real life on YouTube. And if only I gave them the actual honest answer, I think people would be surprised. But the honest answer is absolutely everything that you see and hear of Andy on any YouTube is exactly the way he is in real life. It somewhat pains me to say it, but it is in fact the truth.
You know, the one comment that my friend John, who's over here, and Kevin, both who work with Miles Franklin, and my wife, the one comment that I get from them more than anything is that if only people knew what a moron you are, what a goofball you are, what, you know, I mean, look,
mine is, I mean, you know, what do I say to you every day?
He calls me the dumbest smart person
smartest person
he knows. Well, look, you know something, nothing's changed my life quite the way that YouTube has. And I mean that. Maybe other than my wife, nothing has changed my life that much. And I say that to you with all sincerity. I went to a wedding in Mexico the very end of 2020. It was the last normal thing I ever did before the pandemic. And the day before I went, I had massive fights with the people in my office. And I would say to them, you know, if we are going to be a company that does extra things, and you know, we have to be willing to get ourselves out there. We can't just we have to be more visible, I guess is all I can say. So I went online, I went on Bix's podcast, and I said, you know, things like call us and we'll, at the time, now I can't always do this, but back then I said, you know, I'll try my best to beat every price in the country. Let's see what happens. And my phone went nuts and I got thousands and thousands and thousands of emails. And well, I learned it's really kind of hard to beat every price because there are a lot of companies out there that will often sell things that you know, they take in from the public and give them away. But we're as competitive as just about anyone in America. We're real competitive. And in many cases, more competitive than all of the big online companies. But I never wanted to be a company that was the cheapest. I just wanted my brokers, most of which who don't work with me anymore. A lot of them don't because they didn't like this model. They didn't want to blast our information out to the public. And I said, we have to. This is how people will get to know what we're all about. And I never intended it to be this way. While in Mexico, I probably got 3,000 emails. And I realized that there is nothing like YouTube. And I have gone on YouTube and spilled my guts and my heart for almost 4 years, saying things that put me on the hook, saying things that put me on a limb. And the scariest part of everything, you guys, is most of what I have said has come true, and it frightens me to no level. I mean, it doesn't. But everything I've ever said, I'm serious about. I try to be as genuine as possible. I don't want to be Peter Schiff. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and he's a hell of a lot smarter than I am. I want to be the most sincere person and someone who cares and does what's right by his friends, his family, and anyone that I ever sell metal to. And my clients out there would tell you that is the truth. And I am the same person. And you just haven't seen the knucklehead side of me quite yet. But I come from a home where my house was, well, my family, my parents were hippies, so nothing freaks me out. My wife was the tour manager for Slipknot and Korn. There's nothing that I haven't seen before. So as it pertains to lifestyle, as it pertains to all of these things, this is why I am so upset about what I see happening in the United States, because I am all about lifestyle. I am all about freedom to do whatever the hell you want to do. Just don't shove it down my throat, or collectively down our throats, and change the fabric of this country as a result of it. So anyways, yeah, I mean, if we were to have some drinks, all of us right now, and sit down, and I think people would see that I am the same person.
Yeah, I think that, from my standpoint, I have to say that, I so much gratitude to Andy and his family for the opportunity at Miles Franklin. But I think the most important thing that I want to thank you for is the one thing that you told me first when we met: pay yourself first. Yep. And, to this day, I think it's probably the single greatest thing that you've mentioned, or that you imposed on me. The amount that I was able to put away because of that. And again, not put away, but paying yourself, I think, is a huge, huge thing. With that being said, David also has a question. Can you address the Silver American Eagle notches and what the heck they are doing it for? So many are saying it's to track them. Read the docs from Honeywell. What's your take on it?
Yeah, Big Square talks about the Honeywell diamond dust. It's a technology that they have that's kind of like a fingerprint. It's interesting. I'm one of 27 U.S. Mint authorized resellers. That doesn't mean a lot anymore. Doesn't mean I have direct contact with the Mint all the time. I have a rep that is in essence my liaison between me and the U.S. Mint that I do talk to from time to time. But they've been very close-lipped about what the notch means. The notch moves every year from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock or whatnot. We have X-rayed them. We have cut them in half. We've done all sorts of things. There's no chip inside of it, where a lot of people thought it was trackable. And I kind of got angry at this knucklehead on YouTube who told everyone to put their coins in water on April Fool's Day, and which is not a good thing to do. I mean, it's not like it will hurt them, but you got people opening up coins and freaking out and putting them into water and cutting them and doing all sorts of stuff. It was an April Fool's joke. But they tell us that these notches are security features, that it's difficult when you talk about ridges on coins to have the ability to not put that one ridge in. It's security feature. That's all we know. And whether or not Bix is right about diamond dust, and I'll tell you, there's another guy Bix Weir is the same guy on air and off air. I rode with him when I sponsored his road show. I rode with he and his wife in Winnebago from Texas to Oklahoma, and he blew my mind on many things. But I love Bix Weir largely because he is the same guy on air and off air. He's a real person, and he's the one who opened my eyes to the Honeywell technology of diamond dust. Could it be real? Could it be the fact that we would move? I mean, he's insinuating is we move to a system where, and you see all of these states, 11 states who have passed legal tender laws, 20 plus more that are thinking about it. Could it be you put one of these Silver Eagles up into some sort of reader that the U.S. Mint sends out to retail operations? And yes, it's legit. I guess it's in theory, it could be. That happened in 2021. They started doing it. Those coins minted prior to 2021 do not have the notches. So that's the best I can tell you. That's all I know.
So with gold being at close to an all-time high, I think we have a lot of questions regarding what your thought is on purchasing the numismatics, the pre-33s, against the modern day bullion. So let's Talk a little bit about that.
Most of my career, people didn't buy gold bullion. Most of my career, people bought numismatics. I remember wondering if gold would ever get over $400 an ounce. And, you know, when gold was $350 an ounce, an American Eagle at 5% over 350 is $20 or less. So you're talking 370 for a gold Eagle. You'd pay 395 for a $20 gold piece in MS62, uncirculated and certified. No one bought bullion. Everyone bought numismatics. Not only did it have better upside potential, but it was safe from confiscation. And the difference in price, although it was maybe 5% back when gold is $300 is nothing. So everyone bought numismatics. And I own a lot of numismatics because it was all I accumulated for a very long time. And then in 2008, when it became obvious or preordained that Obama was going to become president, I remember coming back from a boys' trip, a guy's trip. I don't remember exactly where I was at the time, but I get a phone call from my distributor. He says, dude, have you seen what's going on with numismatics? He's like, premiums are absolutely going parabolic. He's like, 62 $20 gold pieces, I'll pay you 70% over spot. Spot was $1,000 an ounce at the time. And I'll pay you 1,700 for any that you want to sell me. There's 4 auction galleries that are dumb as a mud wall that are bidding these huge premiums. 64s, I'll pay you 750, $800 over spot. 65, almost 1,000. So what did I do? I immediately hung up, called my dad. I said, Dad, count every one of your numismatic coins. We're selling every one of them. I sold every one of the ones that I had, every single one of them. And our business was founded on Swiss franc investments in the 90s. And when the Swiss stayed out of the European Union, I knew they were going to have to defend their economy instead of their currency. They said, we're not going to join the union, but I knew they would have to peg their currency to the new European Union currency because they're an export nation. They're an export nation. So you can't sell watches or chocolate to the European Union all around you if they have to first convert to an expensive Swiss franc. So I called every one of those clients. I said, time to cash out of the franc and buy numismatics. This was before 2008. And then when 2008 comes, I called every one of these people who had thousands and thousands and thousands of these coins. And I said, I'm coming to your house and you are going to sell me your numismatics. You have no choice in this matter if you trust me. And you have 1,000 MS63 St. Gaudens. I'm going to bring you 1,800 gold eagles. And I'm going to swap them out with you because they're dummies that are bidding these huge premiums for these numismatics. And so everyone that I became Diamond Elite on Delta. I flew all around the country for almost 2 years, swapping people out of numismatics into bullion. And for most of the rest of my career since that day, bullion prices or numismatic prices have been too high for me to recommend. But like anything in life, markets often swing through fair value to overvaluation, come back through fair valuation to undervaluation. It's a pendulum. And that's where we are in numismatics. We are at a point right now that is commensurate with what I sold them for percentage-wise my whole career before they became expensive. So yes, if you want to buy numismatic coins, now is the time to do it. In fact, the premiums are ridiculously low. And I could see a time where premiums go parabolic. So if you can buy them without it being a material loss in ounces over gold eagles, it absolutely makes sense. And this is one of those times. So I would strongly consider it, especially if you're getting the right price.
All right, well, we're almost on the hour, and John wants us to do a couple of giveaways. So I have one.
Wow,
question.
Man, it's amazing how fast an hour goes when you never shut up.
So I'm going to ask a question, and whoever can respond fastest on the chat, Jana will send something out. Jana is Andy's wife.
Well, and Jana wants to send out swag like this hat. I'm going to throw a silver eagle into that swag for both of them as well.
So you think of a question that is going to be something that you have to ask the audience. I already have mine.
Well, that's too much pressure for me. What question do you have?
So mine's pretty simple. Mine is, in what year did the United States Mint stop using Roman numerals on the gold eagles? I hope you know the answer.
That's a good one.
Hope you know the answer.
I think I do.
Yep, don't say it.
1913.
I think Father Duck.
as I said, I thought that said Frank Duck. Yeah, Father Duck, got it.
Great answer, and very quick. Father Duck, do me a favor, please email info@MilesFranklin and let them know that you were the first one. And the subject line, just do 1991, and we'll know what you're talking about. I hope you have another one. That just racked my brain for that one, but
okay.
Something easy.
Well, I mean, people can Google this stuff so fast.
They're gonna. I know, but I mean,
gosh, you put me on.
Can we do 3, Jean?
We can do 3.
All right. So, what is the only? I guess we could say, what is the only, not the only gold coin, but not approved in an IRA?
Well, I already said it. I said it once.
He was listening.
What is the only gold coin modern minted not IRA approved?
Right. Let's see how fast I already wrote that.
There it is. Elwin Chadwick.
You got it?
Elwin Chadwick.
Elwin Chadwick.
Send us an email at info@MilesFranklin. You'll get some swag and a silver eagle. And that's because it's not 24 karat gold. It's like the American Eagle, which isn't 24 karat gold. It has an ounce of pure gold in it, plus some alloy on top of it. Both the Eagle and the Krugerrand weigh 1.1 ounce, but it does have. Well, Stuart Englert is here. Hey, Stuart, how are you, brother? Thanks for jumping on, man. I appreciate that very much.
This isn't fair. When I started, you had all these little questions to make sure that I was, studying and learning and doing. And now all of a sudden, you don't have any questions for the kind people out there.
Well, it's different when I'm trying to give you a hard time.
To stump me.
Yes.
Yeah. Stump
who's on first, Jake? Jake, I'd like to send you one just because you actually. In many ways have made my speaking on different websites even better. So Jake, we're going to send Jake custom parts, some swag, and a silver eagle. Jake, send me your address again. I know I have it probably, but send it to me again. You can text me, Jake. Jake has my number. All right. So let me think of one quick question. I know I can figure one out here. How about this one? In what year did it become legal again to purchase gold in the United States? I think.
Conscious observer.
I think it's this one right here. Yeah. I think it's Pamela.
Wait.
It's. No, it's not. It's way up there. God, they're going fast. I think it's 1974. It's Raider Drew. Raider Drew, you win, brother. Raider Drew, send your info to info@milesfranklin.com. And I got all these damn questions I didn't even get to.
Well, we have next week. So
you want to,
I mean, why you ask them how often they want to do this?
Oh, well, geez, there you go. How often do you guys think I should do this?
3 times a day, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Why don't you get a couple more of the questions in?
I'll get a couple more.
A couple there that are probably going to take a little
Jake's
while.
Custom Parts asked me a question, Jake. So he says, what's the current sales of U.S. Eagles at Miles Franklin? Any updates on gold sales from the U.S. Mint? So, yes, we have the one update that I will tell you is, to me, the big one that the U.S. Mint told me that they are out of 1/10 ounce gold Eagles. They're all gone. That's how it starts. So they're gone, and they won't make any probably till next year, 2025. So the 1/10s are gone, and we still have some in stock, but they are gone. The Silver Eagles, one of our outside affiliates placed an order yesterday for 300,000 Silver Eagles, which more or less on 2024s have cleaned us out for the next 2-3 weeks. So I have backdates in stock, but now we're buying allocations into October from the Mint, where we're pre-ordering, and this is how this business during the pandemic, how we got into trouble, because we had millions and millions of dollars worth of Silver Eagles and Silver Maple Leafs that were owed to us that we bought into the future. And then the mints shut down during the pandemic, and people had already paid for them and say, where the hell's my silver? And well, the mint went down. So weekly, Andy, is what someone said. We are going to do it once a week. Right on. I agree. That's what I am going to do once a week. But yeah, so the U.S. Mint is out of 1/10 ounce gold eagles. Don't be surprised to see them say the same thing about silver eagles very soon. And Clarence Gardner. Clarence, I love you, my man. I love Clarence Gardner. Clarence is amazing. I talk to Clarence all the time. I talk to Clarence today, as a matter of fact. Thanks for jumping on, Clarence. Okay, so there you go. Let me see if I got one time for one more. I mean, I can keep going. It's only been 1 hour, so let's.
Clarence says that you're supposed to sleep between at least one.
I never sleep, Clarence. I never sleep. Sleep is what you do when you're.
6
They
feet
want to
under.
hear more about your wife's experience.
With the bands. Oh, John, that's a different episode altogether. Andy's not going to be on for that one.
Yeah, well,
That's Miles Franklin after dark.
yeah, Miles Franklin after
dark.
dark. Well, that's one of the reasons I married her, because you can't put a price tag on cool, and you can't put a price tag on nothing that you can do freaks out your wife, right? Maybe except for leaving the toilet seat open when she's 9 months pregnant and gets stuck at 2 a.m. inside the bowl. It was pretty funny, actually.
A little too much.
Well, it was actually very funny, screaming at me. What did I do? What did I do? Oh, I forgot to shut the toilet seat. I'm sorry. Anyways, I love you all. I thank you all very much. I will continue to stockpile these questions. I'll continue to answer questions. I'll bring people on the show. I just did a show yesterday with Glint. As many of you know, I am working with Glint here in the United States, and I brought Robert Kiyosaki on as a guest. I do have a meeting next week that I'm going to bring on I think it's next week. I'm bringing on G. Edward Griffith. We will have a conversation, and he'll come on. I'll get people like that on these shows along with me. But questions that you all have, feel free to send them during the week. That you want to know, and I'll try. I mean, I wanted to get through all of these, but it didn't go so well this time. Anyways, I thank all of you for making this which was kind of weighing on me experience that was pretty cool. So much love, much respect, and I wish you all a good evening, and look forward. Yes.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe and the like button.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you got to hit the subscribe and like button. Make sure you do that. And let's just hope next week or the week after we can get a little bit larger of a chair.
No, I like it when you're down there.
And a little tattoo.
Yeah, he's like I joke with him. I'm Mr. Rourke and he's tattoo, and you had to be there. These are the kind of things that we talk about when you want to know if what I'm like in person. And
Yeah.
anyways, I love you all. God bless. Stay well, and until next time, look forward to picking up where we left off.
Enjoy all.
Bye bye.